Welcome to my channel. I'm Bridget Renee Holiday. I'm a Beyond Quantum Healing Hypnosis practitioner. This video series is going to be all about my own personal BQH session journey and experiences. So stick around. It's going to be very interesting and multidimensional. So this is part 1 of 7 where I discuss my BQH journey experiences, and I want to start off by saying, as with anything in life, only accept what feels right for you from this. So these are my truths. They may not be yours, and that's okay. It's all right for you not to be resonant with what I know to be true and what I experience within my journey. Each BQH session is so very different and unique based on the person, and mine is the exact same case. So I just wanted to get that out in the open and just kind of let you guys see for yourself what I experienced. Mine was very interesting to me, and it was very, very multidimensional. And I won't spend a whole lot of time setting you guys up for this because I'll probably talk about it a little bit during the middle as well. But I do have some notes over here. So if you see me looking down every so often, I just want to make sure that I don't forget anything. And what else? I think that's probably it. So let's just get started. So it started with an induction, which is a normal hypnosis thing that basically is what gets you relaxed, and it kind of gives you the visuals of what is coming next, and it drops you out, or in if you like, to an area that normally contains your past life regression. Mine, on the other hand, did not have that. It doesn't surprise me. I've spent a lot of time in the Akashic Records and delving into my own personal past lives, if we would call them that. So it doesn't surprise me that that's not what my focus was today, or the day of the session. So where I dropped out was this very, very dark area. I mean, everything was just like shades of charcoal and black. And I was more energy than body. And my practitioner, is kind of coaching me along the way and asking for, what is happening to try to get me to absorb it and describe it out loud. And what you'll find in a BQH session is that a lot more goes on behind the scenes than you can really convey during the session. Some people are really adept at that. I think I probably wasn't for my first time. I'd hope that I would be next time. So essentially what happens is I'm in this dark area, and I'm kind of not, it feels really good though. So I'm confused because I don't know what is happening, but I'm not scared, and it's not a bad confusion. It's just I need more clarity. And I started to say that. He was asking for information, and I'm like, I just need more clarity because I had no idea what was happening yet. Nothing was really unfolding. And so I started to reach out for my guides because I could feel that they were there. And what started to happen were these little flashes and blinks and blips in kind of an orderly fashion. They were happening all around me, 360 degrees. And so I'm looking, and I'm like, still don't know what this is. I still need more clarity, and I'm just kind of sitting there, and I've learned a lot of patience over the years, but I'm not probably the person that you would think of to be the utmost in patience when it comes to my own cool stuff. So I'm like, oh, okay, let's try to be patient. And I'm watching these blips happen, and I notice the one in front of me is happening more frequently. I can see that it's happening more frequently, and these are pretty far away. So I'm looking at them, and some of them are even further away from that, and it's just, blipping and blinking, and I can see that it's like a picture of something, but I'm getting just like a little fraction of it. And so I'm watching, and I'm being prompted for answers. And so me being me, I just chose one. I chose the one in front of me because it felt really good. And I'm really glad that I did, because where I ended up coming into with the blink of a choice, essentially, and it wasn't like I choose this, it's just that one, right? You feel it, you go. That's how you travel, a lot like meditation, how you travel at the blink of consciousness. That's essentially what happens in a BQH session, or at least that was my experience with it. So all of a sudden I appear midair, looking at these giant, beautiful sculptural arches that don't meet in the center. And they kind of have this really wide base, and then they go up, and they don't meet in the center, and they get more narrow as they go up. So I'm looking at these arches, and I'm being asked questions, and I kind of feel around, and I look down, and I can see inside of the earth. And I notice that it's like this big grassy knoll between these arches. And these are monster-sized arches. I mean, they're just huge. And they just don't meet in the center. So they come about this close, and then they stop. And I'm like, okay, well, I'm not sure what they are. They're really pretty. So I look down into the earth, and I can see that it's technology. I knew it was technology, but I didn't know what it was for. And I look down into the earth, and I'm like, okay, it just keeps going forever and ever and ever. I probably should know what this is, but I just didn't really care. It's not like that was the point of being there, I guess. And so he's asking me questions and trying to get me to, elaborate. And, I realized that I'm on Sirius, or one of the smaller planets that is in the Sirius collection or whatever. I know it's not the home world, the big giant world. I have traveled there many times in meditation as well as dream time. Ever since Sirius came on my radar, I've had a very close connection to it. So I know a lot about it, or I'm conscious of a lot about it. And so I realized that the place that I'm on feels like Sirius. It has Sirian energy, but it's different. It's more rural. It's more crisp. There's not a lot of hustle and bustle going on this world. Sirius, to me, is a very social world, and this world is very relaxing and refreshing. And so I kind of come and get this understanding of, oh, so I'm on one of the Sirian planets, and he keeps asking me about Sirius, so I keep going, like, bouncing back and forth between both of them to the big world, the mother planet, which I call it, because it's just gigantic. It reminds me of Jupiter, but with beings on it, right? So it's just enormous. It might actually be bigger. I don't know. I haven't really compared the two side by side, but I'm looking at this, planet, and it's pretty nice and beautiful. And I know that you can come here to recharge, because it's so calm, if you would need to for whatever reason. But I keep bouncing to the bigger planet because that's where the more information about Sirius is, and he's asking about Sirius. So I kind of do this thing where I just kind of do a quick consciousness jaunt around the planet. And I love doing that on planets. It's always so fun. And I'm jaunting around, and I hit the oceans. And of course, the oceans. So beautiful. Their oceans are enormous on this planet. And I go into the water, and I'm still consciousness at this point. I go into the water, and I greet a dolphin being and say hello and get love back from him. And then I go further across the ocean, like almost to the other side of the ocean, and I meet a whale being and say hello. And something that I would note about the Sirian beings that live in the water is they are sentient as you and I are. And they are actually respected on their planet as being sentient beings, with their own ways and their own, kind of everything, their own cultures and everything like that. And they're very friendly, at least for me. I've yet to experience someone that isn't friendly. And they're much larger than and they look a little bit different, but they're much larger than what we have here, if you could imagine something bigger than a well, than our wells. So, I just kind of say hello to them. I feel familiar with them. And then I keep going across the planet. And it's interesting to me when I travel in consciousness a lot of times. I do it with spirit journeys, with meditation. And this is kind of similar to that. A little bit more subtle in some ways. But for the most part, very similar to the way you move around. So in here, I'm going from day to night at some points. So I'm not sure if that actually happens on Sirius. Where one part of the world is night and then the other part is day, like it is here on Earth. And I would imagine that's probably what it is. But it literally feels like an instant between one and then the other. So I, am kind of in nighttime area, and I noticed that this is kind of like a hot nightlife area by way of not necessarily going out and going to the clubs, but everybody's interacting and it feels like a party. And Sirius energy to me really always feels incredibly high vibratory. Like it feels like a breath of fresh air every time I go there. And it was no different in my session. It was like this breath of fresh air. It's almost like you get rejuvenated just from being there. All of your cares and worries just fall right off of your back. And it just feels like love and joy. And, you know, like there's not anything ever that could go wrong. Like there's just not an option for it. So it always feels amazing to be there. And then of course I go through the forested areas, and I'm, you know, in the forested areas, and I can see all of their different animals, and it's almost like they're singing when they're communicating, which is just so beautiful. And then I end up in like the portal area. And it's not the first time. I've known about the portals for a while, but I kind of had a feeling in this moment that new information was going to come across that I was conscious of while I was this being that was essentially like an avatar of all of my multidimensional beings, that was conscious and able to connect and be aware of all of the beings that I am in existence at all times, at least during this moment of existence. So I know that's kind of hard to understand, but for me, I'm really multidimensional, and I know that I'm very multidimensional. Most of us are. It's just most people aren't as aware of it. So for me, this really was a lot about my connection. And, you know, as a human, sometimes I'm like, am I connected enough? I don't feel connected enough. You know, that's one of my things, right? That's been one of my things. Am I connected enough? I don't feel like I'm connected enough, which is totally human and totally normal. Even for people that, you know, spend all their time doing this stuff, it's normal for us. Everybody has their something, right? So I'm there, and I'm like, seeing the portals, and I don't know if you guys have ever seen Sirius portals, so I'll try to describe them to you. So essentially it feels like being in a massive lobby elevator room, right? Doesn't look like it, but that's the hustle and bustle feeling that you get there, the closest thing I can say. However, it's much more friendly because most of the time on elevators, people here are trying to not like see and know each other. There, they're all about hi, you know. So it looks a lot like the opposite side of a wormhole, or what you would think a wormhole would look like on the other side. So energy actually streams towards you, and it's kind of a white with some gray, and I mean, honestly, they had different colors at different places. But the main bank that I've always seen is, and you know, kind of experienced, and at this point was very conscious of them they're having multiple banks all around the planet. And granted, this is my perception of what I was seeing. So I just want to stop real quick and say, this is my perception of what I was experiencing in my current consciousness expansion. So it could be that these portals are all over the planet, everywhere you look, and all you have to do is think about them. I don't know, but from my own perception of what I was receiving in this experience, to me it was like they had specific areas that you went to within the planet, and it took an instant to get there, so it's not like you have to. Although I did notice a lot of beings were actually meandering their way around places. Like one place that I didn't mention, let me just segue real quick, was it's almost like highways of light that have, I mean, they're up in the air, right? And they sometimes have vehicles on it, sometimes just have beings on it. And this is in a specific part of Sirius that leads into the main city area that has the banks. So I know that people fly above that. I've seen it. I know that people actually will ride cars on that, or their version of cars. It doesn't look like our car. Their version of a vehicle of some kind. And the other people will just kind of scoot along, but I'm not quite sure they have to. I think sometimes they do it because they like it and it's fun. I don't know. Sirius is a very fun place, and the Sirians are very fun. And one thing you'll notice about Sirius is that people come from all over the cosmos. Like, I mean, you can see beings from everywhere there when you're there. And if you can perceive them, right? Sometimes I can just feel them because I don't know what they look like when I'm in consciousness, when I'm meditation traveling. So with this, I would say, let's just get back to the portal banks. At this very moment, I kind of understood that more information was going to come through, then my consciousness had expanded to kind of hold with me in my Bridget life, my human life, right? So I'm like getting really excited, and I'm trying to describe this to my practitioner, Everett, the whole time, right? Because he's prompting me for questions, which if you stay and listen, you'll hear exactly what happened on the verbal. One thing you'll find with the BQH session is that everything you're feeling and experiencing is so much more magnified than what we have here. Our senses are so vast compared to what we have here. So the next thing I know, I am in Lyra, however you want to pronounce it, and I'm Lyran, and I'm like, oh, okay, and I'm so familiar with her, like I felt as soon as I was was her, I was like, oh, yeah, I know her. And I'm like, okay, my first real experience like with her consciousness as Bridget, but I'm totally familiar with her. So she's going to, like, I could sense that as her, I had been communicating with another one of our aspects, or expressions of source is what I like to call all of your versions, right? So another one of our versions has been communicating with her for a while now, and all day especially. And so I'm riding along with her just to have the experience of what's going to happen. And as she travels into the Sirian, almost like energetic atmosphere, suddenly she is highly connected to this repository or database of energetic information. So she starts to kind of almost like upload her light codes that she had picked up since the last time she was there within her life, as she's just kind of going through Sirius, the planet, going to her destination. And as she's doing that, she's actually collecting codes and upgrades, or whatever you want to call them, for this other being that she's going to go hang out with. This other version of herself. That's where things get really multidimensional, is I'm a version of her as Bridget. The avatar consciousness that I was during this experience is a version of her. She's obviously one of us, and then we're going to meet another version of her, and all of this seemed totally normal. There was not even a little bit of it that was confusing in the moment. Trying to describe it to you, it sounds confusing to me sometimes. I understand it, but I can imagine where it would be like, what are you saying now, But just go with me on this. Just travel with me with this. So as the Lyran, or Lyran, however you like to pronounce it, I'm going to the portals, but I'm collecting information, energetic information, from this Sirian repository of information. Now, I believe that you can choose whether to put your information in there or not, though it didn't seem like anyone was really worried about that. So I wouldn't worry too much about that. But, and that's something we can maybe revisit in another session. But, so yeah, I'm looking, let me see. Let me just check my notes real quick. Okay, yeah, so it's just energetic encoding. And so she grabs the energetic encoding that this other being she's going to play with, essentially all day, needs. And he knows, he is very conscious that she is coming and she's bringing these things. And he's very excited about it. So she goes to the portal, she travels through the portal, and then she is in his body, essentially. And they have this reunion with her consciousness within his body with his consciousness. And they're just kind of chilling. As soon as she goes in, the encoded information starts downloading to him. And he starts, he seemed very adept at it, actually. He starts pulling it into himself. And he is actually some sort of water-like being. He had, a physical form. And he wasn't like what we would consider a fish, but his water was a bit more viscous than what we would consider water here, but he still felt amphibious to me. But he was also like a really light blue with a little bit of aqua in him. So he was a very interesting color, as was the water that he was living in. And I'm not sure, I've never seen these beings before, so I have no idea what he is or how he is. He just felt really good. And as the Lyran, I was just hanging out with him, and we were talking and sharing, and it was just this really fun day. And it was like a day in the life. And then, you know, the download, the encoding, or whatever you want to call it, had finished a long time before. And we were just hanging out, enjoying each other, sharing information back and forth in a very consciousness kind of way that you can really only do when you're in consciousness with one another. Or you're merging somehow, I think, because it just felt like you were just so one, right? And you always feel one in these other places, at least I do, but this was a different kind of merging, and it was just really beautiful. And so at the end, it was like, okay, I'm leaving, bye. She didn't go back to the portals, though, which I thought was very interesting. She just thought, and she was back home in her body. So she was back home, like, even though her body went to Sirius and then traveled as consciousness, she was back home in her body. Not sure how that really works. Not sure that it really matters, but I am curious about it, and that might be something I ask about in my next session. So let me see. Did I describe what Sirius feels like to you guys? I don't know if I did. Okay, so Sirius feels like, let me see what I wrote, because I know I wrote something probably pretty poignant. No, I really didn't. That's funny. So I said it feels like a cosmic homeworld. It's a fun and uplifting place to be. It's a social place where people love to hang out and feel each other's energy and experience each other's energy, and it's bustling with life. So that's pretty true. The water-like humanoid, let me see if there's anything else from this one. So I was actually experiencing him as me. Just in case you didn't know, I was experiencing I could still experience my consciousness as Bridget. I could still experience my overarching consciousness as the, we'll call it consciousness avatar. I was still experiencing my consciousness as the Lyran. And then I was experiencing my consciousness as the water being. So that's a lot of consciousnesses in one area, and you'd think it'd get really confusing, but it was crystal clear. So if there's anything that you can learn from that aspect, is that it's crystal clear. There's another thing that I think was pretty valuable about all of this, is that you can travel into other people's consciousnesses once you're in a high enough level, and everybody knows what's happening. There's none of this underhanded, shady stuff going on, because everybody is out there. That was a very strong feeling. Everybody is out there playing and working together. So where we have a lot of duality and polarity here, and we have this good versus evil, light versus dark thing, it doesn't really feel like that everywhere I go out in the cosmos. I'm sure it exists other places as well. I mean, it's a big place. But what I notice to be true every time I travel, in any way, the session being especially cool, because it was so clear. It was subtle in some ways, but it was so clear. Anyway, I've digressed a little bit. So what I've noticed is that you can literally travel anywhere in the cosmos, right? And you can feel connected, and that everyone is sharing. Everyone is sharing the experience, whether it is their own experience that they're passing on as information, or, you know, if it's, you know, like I did, jumped in the body with someone else who understood what was going on the entire time and was all about it, and then have a moment with them, right? And how cool is that? I think that's amazing. I'm going to check my notes again to see. Yeah, so, there is one last thing that I think I'll bring up for this that I thought was really, really cool. So at one point sometime during this whole situation, there's so much going on, and there's a lot that I probably don't even remember to tell you, because it was so much in the moment. And if I didn't record it afterwards where I'm talking about it, or which does happen, like there were things that I didn't even remember had happened in the session until I heard myself talking about it later, afterwards. And I was literally recording everything that we could think of, right? So, that I hadn't maybe said in the session, which happens, right? So I highly recommend, if you get a session, put a recorder on the way home and just record all the stuff as much as you can, because you'll think you can remember it, but you may not. So on the way home, if you're safe and you can drive and do that at the same time, do it. If not, wait in the driveway, do it, and then leave. Or if you're at home, that's even better. Remote sessions are just as good as being in person. So anyway, at this one point, I experienced a glimpse of, let me see how I said it, the many varied versions of myself, or expressions of source, which is what I like to call it, who are scattered about the cosmos. And oh yeah, I could see energy ribbons. They looked like ribbons and they were undulating. And I could see them literally, you know, kind of moving from one to the other and connecting to all of them. And, you know, it was just this little tiny vision, but it just, again, you know, showed a connector to one and then to another. And it was kind of like this beautiful ribbon, almost like Neath tapestry or spider web, right? Where they're all connected to one another. And I was included in that connection. And so really it just showed me, once again, reiterated to me that I'm silly to, well, not silly in a judgmental way, but it's silly for me to think I'm not connected. I'm obviously very connected, as are you. We're all super connected. It's this world that we forget our connection. Everywhere else we know about it, and it feels so strong and so normal. So that's pretty much it for this. I think that's the last little takeaway that I had from this part 1 of 7, as I said. And if you found this interesting and you want to hear more, go ahead and watch the next video. If you really want to hear what happened in my session, between Everett and I, just go ahead and continue listening. And I'll just say that if this has piqued your curiosity in any way, shape, or form, feel free to visit the link below this video. Come to my website, book your free BQH discovery session, where we can kind of see if this is a good fit for you. And if you're ready to get started, we can get you started almost immediately, depending on my availability. Otherwise, I would say go ahead and like, subscribe, hit the bell to be notified of when my next videos come out, and I'll see you on the other side.
And as you feel yourself now, in this time, and in this place, I want you to tell me the very first things that you see, or the very first impressions that you have as you begin to understand where you are and what is happening around you.
I'm seeing glimpses.
Glimpses? Glimpses.
But it's not clear.
Could you explain?
I need more clarity.
So what we're going to do is just relax in this space. And the unfocused starts becoming clearer and clearer. Everything's in focus now. And the glimpses are no longer glimpses. They appear. It's clear. It's a bright, shiny day.
I'm seeing a big spire. It was outside of Sirius, and now I'm in it, I think. And the first thing I see is that it's an arc spire made out of something. I don't know what it is. It's like concrete, our version of concrete. Really smooth. Sharp edges.
So take a look around. What else do you see?
Purple in the sky. The sun. The sky is different colors. I'm feeling there are different colors anytime you look at it.
Are you alone?
Maybe.
Why are you there? Why have you chosen to see this?
I don't know.
Tell me what
I think I like this place.
Does it feel like home?
It's like one of my homes. When I was first coming in, I could see all different places. It wasn't clear because I was getting fragments of different worlds, but they were like far away in my vision. I think I just chose one when you said to come into view. I'm not seeing the water part right now for some reason.
There's water?
Sirius usually has water. Feels like Sirius. Maybe it's another Sirius. Yeah. It's very modern, but it's also very green and lush. Like I can feel nature here in a different way than I do on Earth.
Have you lived here before?
Oh yeah, right now.
Nice.
It's I live a lot of places.
What do you love most about Sirius?
The activity and the purity. I don't know, it's like it feels like a social hub. A really high vibratory social hub. That part of me loves that. But it's also really pure energy. High vibratory energy.
What type of...
It's like you could get a feeling you could be multiple dimensions in this one planet. You can kind of play around. It's weird that I'm not seeing what I normally see when I think of Sirius. I don't know what this spire arc thing is. It's like that one that they have in that one city, but it doesn't meet in the center, and there's something under the earth that I know is there, but there's a mound of like natural life on top. What we would consider plants. I don't know what it does. I think I know what it does, I just don't remember. I like this place.
What type of activities do you do there?
Like you can relax and recharge here, but it kind of gets used to, it's like a social hub before you go do stuff other places too. And there's people that live here all the time, but they're beings, all different kinds of beings live here. And there's multiple planets. I think I might be on one of those. This one is not as, where I am now is not as social feeling as the other place that I go to. But like all different beings everybody comes from all over to Sirius. It holds keys.
What type of keys?
Energetic encodements, maybe is a good way to describe it. So it's like a seed planet, force eating planets or something. I don't know how to describe it. I get the feeling of it and understand it. Putting it in words is weird. It's like all the energies are here from all over and all different beings. And it encompasses so much life and so much wisdom and knowledge and energetic frequencies. And you come to play with them, but you also come to carry them with you to other places. So like if you're living a life on Lyra, you could come to Sirius, bring your codes, your Lyran codes, and it gets incorporated into the collective energies. And then if you want to go from your Lyran presence and experience, say, I was going to say Orion, but they're kind of self-enclosed. They do, you can go there, but I don't know how to describe what I'm feeling. It feels kind of judgy, but I don't mean it judgy. It's just funny to me. That's a clue. That's an experience that you choose to stay within your group and do what they're doing. Up and down the vibrational planes. But anyway, you get my point, right? I go from one planet and you can pick up codes that are in the vibration of the planet and energy fields and carry whatever ones you want with you to the other existences. As I like to say, expressions of source, right? I don't know if we do it for humans, though.
Is there anything else that you observe that you want to share?
I'm kind of looking around as I'm thinking about this, and I'm jumping in and out of memories.
What type of memories?
Just remembering what I do when I do that, like being a different being and being conscious that I am other beings at the same time, like the lion, cat person, surprise.
Who are you right now?
I think of just consciousness with maybe a form. I'm kind of like an avatar of my multidimensional expansion expressions. I think when I came in, I was experiencing, or I am experiencing, an aspect of myself that is all of them and can know all of them.